Experience games, they are unique monsters to make, balancing precariously one foot in the light, trying to immerse the player into the narrative of the story, the other foot in the darkness, focusing on displaying attractive gameplay that will at least hold the player's attention throughout. Vampire the Masquerade Swansong is just such a creature, the Frankenstein baby of Big Bad World's prior title, The Council, and the tabletop role-playing game, Vampire. It mixes in a whodunit supernatural mystery with undead rap battle style social skirmishes where you use your ability to deceive, downplay, and detour everyone in the game as you try to discover what's happened. As always, if the developer gives me a code, I give one away to one of the watchers. Be one of the first 1,000 people to hit the like button and, well, leave a comment and you'll be one of the first 1,000. Let's talk about looks. It matters in vampire games, and that's presentation. For a game about vampires, it's pretty surprising that everyone here is ugly as shit. It's weird because while the council itself wasn't a looker, it did have a style to it that actually lent some kind of unique air with different designs and color schemes throughout, especially at the starting. With Vampire, well, for the most part, that's actually lost. I gotta say, I do applaud anyone who superglues doll hair to their face and calls it a beard, but this dude isn't gonna go buy alcohol at 16. He's a many decades old vampire. The character models, and especially the lip syncing, are all over the place, as well as a lot of the hairdos and just the models themselves. Until they aren't. As you progress on, you're going to find more and more unique and actually pretty awesome looking locations and people to talk to, but it's not like you're supposed to be leveling up your ability to see cool shit skill at the starting of the game, but in a way, that is actually what you're doing. The game also has no issue playing around with reflections and lightings and shadows and effects for particular moments in the story. I actually do like a lot of the later investigative parts, blown out party areas where for the first time in a long time, it actually looks like someone in a room actually, threw a party and got murdered while having it. And that sense of pure chaos and that environmental storytelling is pretty sound in those spots. I also like the clinical look that some of the vampires' locations had, especially when commenting on the different races of these creatures, their ideas of cleanliness and habit, both human and hunters of humans, differing quite a bit. Not every vampire likes their home to look like something from an Anne Rice novel about vampire prostitutes who think blankets should be curtains. Here, we do get a number of locales reflecting various ideologies of undead, human, and otherwise, and that worked well to separate each into its unique spot. But let me explain something just for a second. Where the council was about a historical group, or at least with those figures, it started out in this fascinating location, causing your imagination to sort of light on fire right away, and even being more grounded as it was, it always felt like something supernatural was occurring. And let's be honest, if you played the game, you know, not everything there was reality, but Vampire feels like it's vaguely got something supernatural possibly happening in a very boring location, especially at the start. It really does start you in a terrible spot, a secret chamber of some random rooms connected to each other with a couple other rooms. And your character, for many parts of the game, is forced to move at walking speed. It's odd to base a good deal of the starting in such a drab and boring and clinical spot with no real pomp and circumstance or interesting bits to keep the player attached. We've seen a lot of games with that one bad level. Strangely enough, in Vampire, the first one would probably be that. Now, the characters don't all fare as poorly. Some are unique, like the cadaverous Nosferatu currently in charge of the IT systems. I want him as a boss. I love that guy. Performance in the game is fine regardless of where you are. Without any real stutters to speak of, from the 1080 Ti to the 2080, it's going to be about 60 FPS at the resolution you expect, easily enough, especially as you have a number of settings as well as DLSS for NVIDIA users to get some FPS back if they want. That being said, even on max settings, Vampire is not a looker or that interesting until that second and third chapter of the game starts to really blossom out, where more interesting characters for sure and locations and abilities are introduced. I just really wish it didn't take so long to get going. But does gameplay take that long? So, Vampire starts out on the eve of a spectacular party, a generous meetup between the vampires of the city of Boston, who are the ruling elite of the underworld, with a magical cabal of men and women who are trying to unite in partnership, or at very least not kill each other ship. That goes spectacularly wrong almost instantly. At least you think it does, because for the first 1/4 of the game, it doesn't do a great job telling you what the goddamn problem is. Just that, oh my lord, something happened. What? Something huge. Who's in trouble? Whoever was there. Who's a part of it? Who knows? Add to that, the entire situation is called Code Red, and for the first 1/4 of the game, it's easy to assume someone replaced everyone's blood with a new type of Mountain Dew that no one liked. You finally find out that this Code Red was called because the party went bad. And you and 2 other vampire characters you switch between are going to have to go and help Prince Hazel, the prince of the city and leader of vampires, in discovering what went down. Each of the vampires has their own race and focuses, and that's all handled through the game's character sheet system. The game tracks mental, social, and physical attributes, as well as skills affected by each one of those, and can be raised separately. Each directly influence the game's main way of progressing, though, which is social role-playing. You have to navigate the solid-state course of fuckery that a vampire clan would be, with all its politics, ins and outs, love affairs, hate marriages, and dramatics. The sheets also track special abilities the vampires possess, like dominating others or being able to grab information from items within the game world, and you can level all these up at the end of each story chapter with experience points depending on how well you did in the gameplay prior. Additionally, depending on actions you take, you'll also pick up lesser traits from interactions. It's good you have all these points though, because Vampire takes its verbal sparring pretty seriously. So serious that I got a trait called Chatterbox for asking a person 2 questions that didn't have to do directly with a specific task at hand. It was like being back in 3rd grade. The interactions are the juice box here, though. Like slow motion rap battles, you wage your skills and abilities added up against the character you're talking to and trying to glean information from. Then, if those all come to a tie, you can roll a dice to see who wins. You can also augment your side and your mental skills with temporary power you gain from doing things within the game world, like feeding on humans. I love that every character in the game also has their own character sheet. Everybody you meet, you can look at their character sheet and see exactly how powerful or weak they are. It actually does a very good job of making you feel like you're at a LARPing event. And with my comments about the voice work coming up soon, it fits pretty perfectly. Regardless of issues that I experienced, I did find myself slowly being drawn into the story, especially as the main game got going. The characters are not instantly noticeably interesting until you find something or overhear something or read some tidbit in the massive glossary that the game provides, as well as the characters' histories, and you're like, interesting, what's actually going on here? As you enter each location, you're given a job by the prince, and you move through that location using your character's skills and abilities to get the job done. This could include manipulating a beat cop into handling over a mangled manila envelope they shouldn't, or a vampire blood meth pusher into giving you the secret to their recipe. At least it should. You play 3 of the most inept vampires I have ever seen, and even when you get to choose a particular class at the starting, or you get to put your points wherever you want, they are all fairly weak compared to a lot of the characters you will experience. So when you start looking at it, it's almost like everybody else's stats in the game, you realize, holy crap, this is going to be downright impossible. And only with that ability to flood my attempt with a massive amount of power to overclock like a CPU benchmark, I actually ended up losing a number of different battles. It's just weird, even when a random beat cop was shirking off my attempts left and right. Also, since the NPCs have a chance of realizing that you're trying to control them, they can also bring in their own power into it and focus even more, which can cause an issue. You can see the percentage of your chance to win. If you just choose to go 1 level above 50%, if they focus, you're back now at 50%, which is a dice roll. And I swear to God, those dices are loaded. I felt like I was in a casino in 1967. Here's how one experience actually went. Me to the beat cop. Give me the files. Nope. Me. Give them to me or else. And I was using my cool vampire stare down. Nope. Give them to me, please. Nope. Now, not every single event went that way. It was just the way that everything sort of played out. But it took a while to get some traction. There are a couple ways to go about some of the activities, but this is not a holistically free-form game. In fact, the prince sends you to do jobs with your skills, so don't expect to go in and completely freehand the situation. Some are a bit more sandbox, while others do require a more puzzle-like 1, 2, 3 note to complete the missions. One thing I did like here is that most of the locations have their own separate situations going on and little intrigues. And while the less I say is better, since the prince sent you out to do all these things, the game only tracks that main one, leaving the side events or stories or situations are not really tracked. The game moves you through these locations and experiences with very little overall pressure. Some of it is set on you by things like your hunger, which grows as vampires move around locations with a lot of blood. Feeding on the humans within the game has a number of useful reasons to do it, but do watch out. If you suck them dry like a Capri Sun, it will kill them and cause the suspicion to raise for all vampires, because this is one contained adventure. I did like some parts of this game, especially later on. The character sheet is also usable for sure, and seeing what other vampires are sort of capable of makes you realize you aren't leading the pack for a reason. It's the equivalent of everyone walking around nude, but for social skills. There's no lying about size here. And something else I can't lie about, The audio's not very good. Let's talk about the audio presentation for a second.
Do you think you'll be able to ask the prince tonight if you can embrace me?
No. Now is no longer the time.
Miss Iverson has the top floor all to herself.
Yes, that's where she's got her office for hearings, as well as her personal quarters.
Not death, then.
It's the cold. It's kept in the fridge, and the vessels don't like it. That's a pretty good one, don't you think?
Oh.
Here, the audio is lifted up by the music and the sounds and then dropped flat on his face by the voices, which really does hurt the game in the long run. While much of the soundtrack is sort of a muted affair, the parts when exploring and moving through the locations or having psychic vampire flashbacks does a serviceable job, especially adding tension to those moments. The sound effects are also done well. There's this one location where you're moving through a multi-millionaire skyscraper apartment, and they built their own little vacation spot right within it, and that was awesome, piping in the sounds of this other native location. Just a reminder that humans need some familiarity no matter how alien the surroundings are. But the voices, they are not very good. There are a couple that are passable, especially later on. There's one or two main characters I really liked. But the biggest issue here, and pinpointed by many of the characters, is that a lot of it does sound like spoken word directly read off the page. This is something that probably could have been fixed with the audio director sort of identifying how people leave discussions and start discussions and move from sentence to sentence with not reading a script. And that's unfortunate that that kind of thing happened. And all of these packages bring us to fun factor. Was the game fun? Yeah, for some of it, it was. I really did enjoy the ending and the middle locations. I did not enjoy the starting at all. It was one of those titles that really took a long time to get going, and you were like, is the subterfuge of this game all about the fact that I can't find the fun in it? But I did, over time, find some enjoyment. Definitely walking around, experiencing different things from the viewpoints of the different vampires with slightly different powers, and one or two of them having powers that are actually pretty supremely useful in some locations was fun to do because you felt like you sort of had to scrape by with one, and then you came in with the other, and you were sort of Billy Badass, which I did actually like. But the voices really brought this thing down, as did that glacial starting. So as you guys know, I rate games on a buy, wait for a sale, rent, or never touch again rating system, or rent being replaced by deep sale on PC. This game's lower starting price does help it. I would say that this is a wait for a sale. The first reason is that the graphics here look like they're being presented in one of those monthly games, a little bit like the Telltale games or the console before it, where they're not really stepped up to AA or AAA, but they're sort of meandering in the middle. And there is some unevenness that you can actually feel in the game, almost like at one point, maybe this was slightly cut up, especially when you see the first starting locations. You're like, this is really drab. And then some of the later ones sort of step it up. Also, the audio does hold it down, but this is a story that as time passed on, I do like these kind of social experiment kind of games and the role-playing games that sort of take this world and put them in. I do like that idea. I like the idea of the council, and I actually think that over the long span of things, I enjoyed this game a little bit more than I did the council, but it's also because I could play it all in one sitting or in an extended sitting, where with the council, you did have to sort of wait to get the game, unless you bought it late. So anyway, that's it for me. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Check out the title. I would love for you guys to look at this game. If you do buy it, you can use my Epic code. If you don't. That's it for me. Check out the Reddit. Also, we would love to have you to talk about games and the Patreon. I hope you guys all have an awesome time, and I hope you're looking forward to all of the games we're getting this fall.